Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us. My name is Stacey Varghese, and I'm the Director of Leadership Annual Giving and Engagement at St. John's University. Today, we have Rocky Romanella, who will discuss micromanagement. Some housekeeping rules before we begin. If you have a question, please submit it on the bottom right in the chat section, and they will be answered at the end of the presentation. Lastly, a recording of today's session will be found on the Alumni Professional Development page on the university site. Now I'm excited to introduce our speaker. Rocky Romanella is founder, president, and CEO of 360 Management Services, LLC, and author of the book Tighten the Lug Nuts. 360 Management Services is a complete management services company with seasoned professionals focused on thought leadership, leadership development, and process improvement. Prior to this, Rocky served as CEO and director of Unitech Global Services, a provider of engineering, construction management, and installation services to companies specializing in telecommunications field. Rocky also completed a 36 career at UPS, where he served as president and general manager of UPS Supply Chain Solutions. Rocky has a bachelor's degree in executive management from St. John's University. He is also a two-time winner of the UPS Chairman's Award for Excellence and has received 2 prestigious certifications from Columbia University's Graduate School of Business and from Michigan State University. Rocky, I will hand the webinar over to you now.
Well, thank you, Stacey. And as Stacey said, I'm a proud St. John's grad, actually from Staten Island. And I started my career at UPS, as Stacey said, and St. John's gave me that opportunity to work my way through college. So I'm very grateful to St. John's and very grateful at the time that Staten Island campus was there, but a proud St. John's graduate. So let's get into today's topic. As Stacey said, we're going to focus the predominance of this topic on micromanagement, but we'd like to talk about this whole concept of a microtoxic work environment and then how micromanagement is a part of that. And so as we go through the presentation, as Stacey said, no need to go into my background any further, just to say that I am now a member of the Forbes Business Council, contributor to some of their articles, and actually author of some of their articles. And so this topic of micromanagement and also this kind of toxic work environment is 2 articles I had just written for Forbes. So if you get an opportunity and want to take a look at that, feel free to do that. And also, as Stacey said, I'm the author of the book, Tighten the Lug Nuts. Importance here is that many of the topics that we'll talk about today are much deeper defined inside the book. There's stories inside the book. The book's written in a way that should be a lot of fun to read, but also an opportunity for you to maybe have a few aha moments. So having said all that, let's get into our topic. I know I'm conscious of your time. I want to be respectful of your time. So certainly we went through our introduction and welcomes. Why we're here is to talk about what I think is such an important topic inside organizations today, which is how we treat our people, and more importantly, how we give them the authority that goes with their responsibility so that we aren't micromanaging them. And are we the leaders that are creating this kind of toxic environment that makes it difficult for people to want to work for our organizations or stay within our organizations? We're going to talk a little bit about this concept of balanced leadership. We'll go through that for just for a few minutes. This kind of a bigger picture of this micro toxic work environment, and then what are some of the causes, but more importantly, focusing on micromanagement. And then certainly at the end, talk a little bit about some leadership principles and take your questions. So that's today's agenda. We're going to dive right into it. First, let's talk about this concept of balanced leadership. I think it's so important. Balance is so important in all that we do, right? You know, going too far left or too far right gets us all in trouble. And it's very difficult for our people because we're bouncing around as an organization or we're bouncing around as leaders. So balance is so important in all we do, both in our personal and professional lives. I talk a lot about this in my book, Tighten the Lug Nuts, and it's the principle that I've kind of developed for myself as a leader. And I talk a lot about it at conferences and in our training workshops, this concept of balanced leadership. Balanced leadership in the simplest form is you want to think like a customer, You want your people to feel like valued individuals, but you want to act like an owner in all the decisions that you make. And those are the three key constituents that you think about and you make sure are represented in all the decisions that you make. And so that's a concept of balanced leadership. Think like a customer, feel like a valued individual, and act like an owner. I think what's interesting about balance is that there are times though in this balance approach that one of the three key constituents, customers, people, or share owners or stakeholders, will take the lead. In today's discussion, the lead will be taken by feeling like a valued individual. Do you feel valued inside your organization? And when you think about some of the things that make you feel valued, I think this chart kind of describes those parts of what you feel as an individual and what an organization should try to provide for you. There's recognition. Do you get recognized for the job that you're doing? Recognition comes in many forms. Could be a simple, hey, thanks for coming in. Thanks for all you do on behalf of our organization. Appreciate the job you did yesterday. Could be more of a public thanks where you're recognized for, as Stacy said, I was a 2-time chairman award winner. So that was a much bigger type of recognition, much formal. We had a balanced scorecard. We were ranked. And so everyone kind of knew that recognition. And all of us take our recognition differently or accept our recognition differently. Some of us would rather just private recognition. Some of us would like more public recognition. But recognition certainly is one of those areas as an organization that you have to pay attention to and make sure your people are being recognized. And clearly in today's world, with things being so virtual, it does present some challenges in how you recognize, where you recognize, and when you recognize. Training and development is such an important thing. Today, you're taking that opportunity to sit on this webinar. This will be produced. The recording will be produced. You may look at it at a different time. There's podcasts out there. So training is such an important part. It's a training the organization provides to you, and it's a training that you seek for yourself. I always believe that as an organization, we should inspire our people to be the best, the brightest, most informed, and best educated people in the industry. You should aspire to have those same skills. You should aspire to want to be. So I should inspire you as an organization, and you should aspire to be the best, the brightest, most informed, and best educated people in the industry, a person in the industry in this case. So I think training development is such an important part. Work-life balance is another thing that's important. It makes you feel valued. One of the recommendations that I learned the hard way, and if my family was on this call with us right now, they would be smiling saying, "You, Dad, I wish you would have used some of this stuff throughout your long career." But one of the tips that I've learned, and one of the skills I wish I would have had, is understanding the difference between nice to do things and need to do things. I put everything in need to do. I think probably most of you are sitting on this call, especially those individuals that that have goals set or very aggressive or very are going after certain things inside your careers. You put everything into need to do, and you think that everything's need to do. But the reality is there's nice to do things and need to do things. And the nice to do things are the things that give you an opportunity to have work-life balance because they're nice to do. You could do them, but you shouldn't do them and miss a Little League game, or shouldn't do them or miss a family dinner, or miss an opportunity to do something else that gives you balance. And so for me, this work-life balance is important. And I think it really comes, and it also comes down to you being a good leader, right? Because good leaders understand the nice to do things and the need to do things, and then they prioritize the things properly. So work-life balance certainly makes you feel valued, and when you're working for someone who respects that work-life balance, I think it goes a long way. And we'll talk a little bit about that in this kind of toxic work environment and then this micromanagement part of it. Safety is important, certainly important. You want to work in a place that values safety. Safety, is a core value inside the organization. I won't allow you to work unsafely. I care enough about you that I won't allow you to work unsafely. Career development, am I developing inside an organization, both personally and professionally? Do I feel like the organization cares enough about me to sit down, take the time, and lay out what's the game plan for Rocky Romanella? How do I grow and develop? And sometimes the growth is inside a current position. Sometimes it's a lateral position that helps you grow and attain different skills that you need. But certainly the understanding that you care enough about me that you're going to take the time to have that career discussion certainly makes me feel valued. And finally, empowerment. And we'll talk a little bit about empowerment as part of micromanagement. But just remember, true empowerment is when people discipline themselves. When you're empowered, you're more disappointed in something that you failed than anyone that you work for. You're harder on yourself than the people that you work for because you're empowered. You care. You've been given the authority that goes with the responsibility. So true empowerment when people discipline themselves. I think that's something that sometimes gets missed. So let's talk a little bit about this kind of on the bigger picture, this toxic work environment. And we've all heard of it, that place where people talk about not wanting to work. That's the macro side of it, right? But what's micro toxic work environment? What's this area that we're going to talk about today? Well, the micro side is that you may work inside a good organization, but you're just working for a bad boss, or you're working in a bad business unit, or you're working in a tough environment inside a current position. The overall organization may be a good organization to work for. It's funny, people will say to me, oh, my organization just got named one of the top companies to work for, but yet where they're working, there's a lot of turnover. And so that's sort of the micro side of it. The macro is the overall organization, and maybe that overall organization is one of the best places to work for and gets rated that way every year. But now you happen to be in that micro piece of it, right? That's struggling a little bit. And that tends to be because of the person that you work for. So let's talk a little bit about that micro side and leave the macro to that part that it's a good organization, it's a good overall organization. It's just a bad place that I'm in right now. And I think that all comes down to leadership. Here are 6 things that I think, kind of contribute to that toxic work environment. We'll only discuss in great detail this micromanagement piece, but if you think about that slide I had up, what makes you feel valued, and now you start to talk about these things that are taking place in that micro situation, you start to realize how, wow, those things that I think are important, that makes me feel valued, that I agreed with when that slide went up, and those are the things that I'm hoping for inside this organization. Now you start to see how they're treated with less respect, those important items, than you treat them, right? Your vision of what's important inside the organization, what's important to you as a valued individual, doesn't feel like it's getting the recognition that it deserves. So let's talk a little bit about it. The first to me is these, emails that are sent at off hours, right? How many times you get an email on a weekend and someone will say to you, hey, I hope you don't open this, or I hope you're not going to take the time to look at this, but I just thought I'd get this to you. Well, if you knew that once it came in, because most of us are working from home now, or you're in virtual, so your computer's always up, there's always a beep coming in. The minute the beep comes in, most people take a look at it, and then next thing you know is they're taking a look at it and they're working on it. So I think that over the course of time, that lends to that environment where you feel like I'm working 24/7, right? Because things are coming in all the time. And so as an individual, as a leader, I can schedule that email. Maybe I'll send it first thing Monday morning, but why am I sending it to you on a Friday night to look at over the weekend? No, but saying to you, I hope you don't open it up. I hope you spend time with your family, but I just thought I'd get it to you. So all of these emails at off work hours, I think, are something that starts to create this toxic environment. The other thing I think that sometimes creates that toxic environment is that reply all, right? So now you're on all these emails, everything's a reply all. So I think emails, the ability to manage them properly, understand as the individual sending those emails, there's appropriate time and place to send them, I think is important. Your personal time isn't valued, right? Well, if you think about the email scenario, you're not valuing my personal time if you're sending it to me at all times. I'm getting asked questions, meetings, you're calling meetings that weren't scheduled, but now they are. Now, there are times when those things are going to happen. Don't get me wrong. I understand that completely. But there's also if I value your personal time, I think twice. Is this a nice to do meeting? Is this a need to do? Me calling you up on the phone and taking time away from you and your family after dinner, or if I'm calling you at the dinner time, all those kinds of things start to create that environment that you start to wonder, am I valued? Do I feel like they really care about me as an individual and the things that are going on inside my life? A boss who makes their problems your problems. I mean, how many times have you work for someone who you're sitting on a call or at a meeting, and they're like, you don't understand what it's like to be me. I got to go report this to the next level. Things are difficult. I'm under a lot of pressure. And you're thinking to yourself, well, you wanted the job. You got the job. By the way, you're getting paid more than I'm getting paid. All right. So what did you think was going to happen when you took that next level, right? So there's a simple rule, both in customer service and in leadership. When your problem in customer service becomes the customer's problems, they just leave. They don't need any more problems. I'm a customer. I don't need any more problems, right? I got my own problems inside my company. As a leader, when my problems become your problems, you just leave. You got enough. You don't need my problems. And so you always have to be very conscious of that as a leader. I also think you always have to take the approach that it's never about me as the leader. It's always about you as the people in my care. And if a leader takes that responsibility, I've always believed that people don't work for me. They're people in my care. I have a responsibility to put them in the best position they can to be successful. And so that's what drives that relationship. And that's what allows people to feel like they're valued. Of course, number four is creating chaos. Well, there's a lot of leaders, there's a lot of people who manage in chaos. They love chaos. They love, kind of managing, shooting from the hip. You know what? There's nothing better than a good plan. A plan, failure to plan is a plan to fail. So not everything's going to be planned out, but boy, chaos is not, it's not a management principle that a lot of people write about that. Hey, I give you a great management principle. It's not like, the 1 minute manager says, hey, if whatever that book is, boom, go find chaos. So I think that's important. That's also an important part of what you do as a leader is to show that, you have a plan, you have a consistent approach. And that also then, if you think about the ones we've just talked about, that also is respectful of your time, right? Chaos isn't respectful of an individual's time. You're being micromanaged. We're going to talk a little bit more about that in detail. And finally, you're that leader who silently sanctions bad behavior. If someone is not doing the job that they're doing, look, there's no secrets inside an organization. Everybody knows who's not pulling their weight. So all of us sit around and we say, when is someone going to finally figure out that they're not doing the job? And so the next thing you know, you get more work, or you get another piece of it, or something else changes because someone's not doing their job. Well, as leaders, we're not allowed to silently sanction bad behavior, whether it's in holding people accountable to do what they're supposed to be doing or doing what they said they were going to do. Or, for example, I'm not allowed to silently sanction bad safety behavior. If I walk by a person, they're getting in their vehicle and they don't put their seatbelt on, I have to stop them at that point. If they're backing and they're not, they're backing improperly, I have to stop them. Well, it's the same if an individual is not doing what they're supposed to be doing, their work isn't being done on time, and I don't say anything to them, I've just silently sanctioned bad behavior and I set that precedent. So those are the things. These are the 6 areas I think that I talked about in that Forbes article that, kind of contribute to a microtoxic work environment. And as I said before, inside an organization, the organization could be in general well-respected organization for people to work, but inside your group, you could have this microtoxic work environment. So let's talk a little bit about this concept of being micromanaged, right? Nobody likes being micromanaged. If you think about what micromanagement is it's a lack of faith and trust in you, right? I'm questioning everything you do, right? It's this whole concept of your authority doesn't equal your responsibility. You gave me the responsibility to make these things happen, but you gave me none of the authority to make it happen. And I think it starts with the confidence that the leader has in themselves, right? Micromanagers are those individuals who maybe project themselves as the leader, project themselves as the kind of verbose, and they project themselves as I'm in charge, right? But usually people who do those things are lacking self-confidence and lacking confidence, and the lack of confidence comes out in their I'm in charge. They're telling you all the time. A true leader never walks around saying, hey, I'm in charge. People understand they're in charge by the way they carry themselves, right? A promotion, for example, I used to always say, a person is the next level before they are the next level. They carry themselves like they are the next level. They accept the responsibilities that go with that next level. People look up to them. They're the individuals. They're the individual, that silent leader that everyone is talking to, or everyone, comes up to. And so that to me is that quiet, confident leader. And that quiet, confident leader always has the ability to delegate, understands that, hey, I'm going to give you this responsibility, but I'm going to give you the authority to do it. I give you the parameters of the authority. Now, clearly, a good example would be inside a phone center. Here's a great example. You gave me the authority to answer the phone and try to fix that customer's issue. Maybe my authority, that's my responsibility, but maybe my authority is up to $100. Up to $100, I could give you a credit, or anything up to $100, I can send you, kind of a gift card. So I can solve that problem. Now, if what you're calling about is $20,000, then I have to go to the next level. But you have to have the authority that goes with the responsibility to solve many of the problems you're asking me to solve. And so you set parameters for authority. You don't have complete authority maybe in that example, but you have authority to probably solve 80% of the problems. Well, I feel good about that. I feel like I can hang up the phone and I've created a happy customer, even though they had a service disconnect, but I solved the problem. If you're going to micromanage me and all I'm really doing is answering the phone, but I cannot resolve any of the issues, that's a hollow feeling. I'm always getting my boss. It happens the most, I don't know if you've had one of these situations, but how about the car dealership, right? You go in to buy a car, 100 people meet you at the front door. Hey, are you here to buy a car? Yeah, I'm interested in buying a car. Okay, and then they always ask the question, well, can you buy a car? And I always say to them, well, don't worry about whether I can buy a car. Can you sell me the car? Yeah, of course I can sell you a car. Okay, see that car over there? Sticker price is $20,000. I'll offer you $19,500. Oh, I gotta go get my manager. Okay, but you just asked me if I could buy a car. Yeah, I can buy my car, but you can't even sell me the car. So why don't you get me the person that can sell me the car? So now the next person comes. Now he's the general, or she's the general manager. You go through that whole process. They always ask you, hey, are you going to buy the car? Can you buy the car? Are you really interested in buying a car tonight? And sure enough, now person number two, you say, yeah, I think it's 20,000. How about 19,500? Oh, let me get the head salesperson. Okay, so then you still can't sell me the car. The example here is basically, go get me the person that can sell me the car, who has the authority to make the deal. I have the authority. I didn't bring my parents. I didn't say to you, okay, you came back with a price and now I got to go ask my mom. So your authority doesn't equal your responsibility. Well, it's the same when you're managing people. If you gave me the responsibility to provide this task, to do this task, then you needed to give me the authority. And I understand there'll be some parameters. But in that car dealership deal, if you said to the salesperson, hey, look, you can only take 10% off the sticker price. Okay, well, then the deals could happen much quicker than every time this happens, the next person's got to come in, the next person's got to come in, and the next person's got to come in. So then that becomes a process that's hollow then for the individuals working there. Well, it's the same inside an organization. So micromanaging at its core takes away your authority and makes you feel less than you should feel. It makes you feel like they don't trust me enough. In a small business is a good example. Toughest thing in a small business is hiring person number 2, number 3 inside a small business. Why is that? Well, in a small business or in our professional lives, we allow our strengths to become our weaknesses. So what's the strength of a small business owner? Nobody knows the business better than they do. Nobody cares about the business more than they do. No one's more invested than they are, right? Because they started the business. They took everything they owned, slid it across the table, and now they're all in. So what's their biggest weakness? Nobody owns it. Nobody cares about the business more than they do. No one is more invested than they are in the business. Nobody knows the business better, right? So now they have to hire that first individual. Well, now they have to give up authority. Well, you're not giving up authority. You're enhancing authority, right? You're giving someone the responsibility to help you run your business because you have more customers now. Maybe you work more hours, and so you have to give them the authority that goes with it. A confident person understands that I'm giving them the authority that goes with the responsibility so that we can become more successful. So micromanaging at its core takes away your authority, takes away your value, and frankly, lets you as the leader off the hook for training and developing people, training and developing that individual who's going to be, a better employee for us, who someday could take on more responsibility. So think about all those things that were on that list. Micromanagement, if you think about it, really erodes all of those key building blocks for you feeling like a valued individual. I think so. Micromanagement, to me, in the grand scheme of what we talked about in that micro-toxic work environment, is probably the one that has the greatest detriment, because I let you feel less than a valued individual. Let's quickly go back and look at that. Look at those building blocks, right? Recognition. I'm not getting any recognition if you're micromanaging me. I'm not getting the training because you didn't train me to do my job properly and then give me the authority to do that job, right? Delegation comes from me training you, you demonstrating that you understand it, and then you go do it. And I give you the authority that goes with it. And I tell you your parameters and how much you can do. Your work-life balance. There is no work-life balance. You had me do a job. I worked as hard as I could. How many times did you work for an individual who asked you to do a report or write a memo or do something along those lines? Build this, kind of communication plan. And then you build a whole communication plan, and then they change it all. They wordsmith it to death. They change this, they change that. Well, then you're looking at them thinking, well, why don't you just do it yourself? Or why don't you just tell me exactly what you wanted me to do? That is the biggest, I gotta tell you, it drives you crazy when you hear that. Why don't you just tell me what it is you wanted me to do? You just took away my energy, my enthusiasm for the job or for development. So think about that. That whole work-life balance. I did all this work. I could have been doing something else. You might have worked that tonight, all night at home on this project that you were given at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and then you come in the next day and they change the whole thing because they wordsmithed it. They didn't like the way the paragraphs looked. They didn't like this. They didn't like that. Well, then you look at them and you're thinking, you should just tell me what you wanted if you were going to do that. You never get any better ideas as an organization. The greatest feeling I used to always have was when someone brought me back something infinitely better than I gave them. Well, they brought back stuff infinitely better than I gave them because they knew I'd be open to, what they did. That's what drives great people. That's what drives great people inside an organization. That's what makes people feel fulfilled. Safety we'll leave on the side for a second, but career development. Do you feel like you're going to grow inside an organization where no one gives you any authority? No, everybody micromanages you? No. You feel like, you know what, I'm a hired hand. I'm just an employee of the organization. I do as I'm told. Or as they always say, I work as directed. So there's no career development. And then empowerment, as we talked about, you don't feel empowered if you can't make decisions. Remember what we said, true empowerment is when people discipline themselves. So you're more vested in the success of the organization when you're not micromanaged. So if you think about balanced leadership, thinking like a customer, feeling like a valued individual, and acting like an owner. Well, acting like an owner is such an interesting one of the three constituents, right? If you can have the people inside your organizations feel like an owner, act like an owner, feel like this is their candy store they're running, they make such great decisions on behalf of your organization because they make them like an owner. Well, how do I drive that feeling down to everyone in my care, everyone inside my organization? Well, I give them the authority that goes with their responsibilities, so I have them act like an owner. Give you a quick example. When someone would bring me a new idea and they'd say, hey, I got this new idea for a new product, I would sit and listen, and I would listen intently to make sure that all three key constituents were represented: customers, people, share owners, and stakeholders. So let's say, for example, inside the presentation, we have a new product and they go through their PowerPoint presentation and all the slides. And so the customer's clearly represented well. Why it's a new product, where it fits in the portfolio, why people are going to need it, why it's the right product for us to have. And on the ownership side, or on the stakeholder share owner side, there's the CFO. He or she's banging on a calculator. At this price point, this number of units will make a profit. They could at that point say to me, hey, what do you think? We want to move forward. I would say to them, stop. Customers are represented. Share owners are represented, or people aren't represented. What do you mean? Well, what's the training these people are going to need? Do they understand why it's important in our portfolio? Do you understand, why we're putting this product in now? Our people aren't represented. And so I would say to them, please come back. We're 60, 70% there, but our people need to be represented. Well, let's meet again in a week. And you have that all done? Yeah. So they come back a week later. And so customers, people are represented, shareholders are represented, stakeholders. So we got balance. We're making a decision within this balance framework. But then I would always ask the last question. I would say, if you own this company, if you were writing the check out of your personal checking account, would you do this? And I would say to you, 80% of the time, people would say, yeah, I'm all in. And then they're ready to go. There's a couple times where people would say to me, no, I wouldn't do it. And you kind of tilt your head like, wait a minute, you're asking me to do it, but you're not willing to do it yourself. And they would say to you, well, you asked me to bring a new product. You asked me to drive a new revenue stream. You said we needed this for the organization. I brought you what I thought would work. But no, I wouldn't do it. All right, well, clearly, if you wouldn't do it, I'm certainly probably not going to do it either. But people have always asked me this question when I give this example. Well, if somebody brings you an idea that you may not necessarily would do, but it's a good idea and they're all in, do you ever say, yeah, let's do it? And the answer is yes. Maybe it's not the approach I would have taken. Maybe it's not exactly the product that I would have picked or the solution I would have picked, but it's a good solution. And therefore, if you're all in, if you're willing to write that check from your checking account, when you get asked that question, if this was your company, would you do it? And you're so all in, I'm with you on it. And so that's how you drive people to feel like an owner. When they feel like an owner, they make much better decisions on behalf of your organization. And so that's how you empower them. I don't have to tell them that they're off plan. They know they're off plan. They're working hard to get back on plan. In fact, I go from being the master of the obvious to the kind of cheerleader, right? They know they're off plan. It's their idea. They're committed to it. They're empowered. They don't want to be micromanaged. What they want to do is they want to fix it. They don't want to let themselves or me down. So now I go to a cheerleader. Hey, it's going to happen. What help you need from me? So I think that's so important. The final thought on micromanagement before we wrap this up is, so my greatest leadership lesson came from my wife, Debbie. We were talking one day. We had gone out to dinner with a family, and another couple, I should say. And we have 4 children. My oldest is a special ed elementary ed teacher. I got a second is my daughter's a TV producer. I have a son who's in sales, and my fourth is a baseball coach, college baseball coach. So we're sitting there talking one day, and the woman says to Debbie, hey, who's your favorite? You got 4 kids, who's your favorite? And I'm thinking, I'm going to take a step back and listen to how she answers this. And she says, I have no favorites. They're all my favorite. She goes, oh, come on. One of them has to be your favorite. We have 3, she's telling us, and, so-and-so is my favorite. And so they said, no, they're all my favorite. So the woman then asked her this question, how could that be? And then the next moment came this brilliant, thoughtful response from my wife that became my leadership lesson in my adult life. And she said, they're all my favorite because each of them gets what they need when they need it. Now think about that for a second. Each of them gets what they need when they need it. Therefore, they all feel like they're special. They all feel like they're the favorite. And so if you think about that, that's how I manage from that moment forward. And that to me is the greatest way to avoid micromanagement. If you think about it, if I had a seasoned CFO, he or she didn't need me to micromanage them. He or she didn't need me to ask them any questions. They just needed me to leave them alone and let them do their jobs. And so they felt like they were their favorite because I didn't bother them. I let them do their jobs. We had our conversations, we talked, but I spent probably 10% of my time with them. If I had an account executive or a sales leader who was brand new or new in the job and they needed me to go close a deal with them or spend some time with them or maybe work through a kind of a sales plan with them, and I spent that time with them, they felt like they were the favorite because I was giving them more of my time than anybody else. And so I was empowering them by spending time with them and giving them the opportunity to be successful, but letting them be successful. So the greatest way to not micromanage is to understand that everybody inside your care has to get what they need when they need it, and you have to be willing to do that. So micromanagement at its core just erodes so much of the confidence, the energy and the enthusiasm of the people inside your organization. And so you have to take a look back as a leader and take these 6 that we talked about, and certainly micromanagement, and making sure that they clearly understand what are the things that they're doing, and are they building this mycotoxic work environment. Finally, for me, people are our greatest assets. And I was so, concerned about this that I just put out, it's been out now 9 months now. It's a 3 to 5 minute podcast that comes out every Tuesday and Thursday. We just in fact launched season 5. We have about 60 of them that are up right now, and they're on all these various topics. We're going to talk a little bit about micromanagement at some point in season 5, but in season 1, 2, 3, and 4, we've talked about all these leadership topics, but it's only 3 to 5 minutes. The podcast drops on Tuesday and Thursday. My attention span for a 40-minute, sadly, is not very good. I like the sound bites. To me, it was like having a cup of Joe. You know what I mean? A cup of Joe. A leadership podcast with your morning coffee kind of idea. So that's how serious I am about this whole leadership development and giving people the opportunity, give them the authority that goes with responsibility, give them the confidence to lead. And it's difficult, right? We all have grown and we've all had different responsibilities. And so I wanted to produce something people 3 to 5 minutes, boom, quick. And then the topics, maybe there's this topic important to you, maybe there's something going on. So take a look. It's on the website www.tightentheLugnuts.com, right after the book, Tighten the Lug Nuts. The book will give you detailed information. The book will build out a lot of these. Each chapter can stand on its own, but also it's part of the story, as well as these leadership library podcasts are just 3 to 5 minutes, or individual, kind of leadership topics or management topics that could help you through a difficult moment or time. Visit our website to interact more. I certainly, I'm at Rocky Romanella, just as my name is, at gmail.com. If you have a question or a concern, you can contact me through the website as well. But wanted to thank you for the opportunity today to share this whole concept of this microtoxic work environment, as well, and then kind of drill it down to this whole concept of micromanagement, and how micromanagement really kind of destroys the kind of the energy and enthusiasm and your people feeling valued, your people feeling like they're part of the solution, not part of the problem. So with that, Stacy, I'll turn it back over to you. And if we have any questions, we have a few minutes here to do that.
Thank you. I see 2 questions that came in. The first one is, I am on the other side of micromanagement. My manager is a big micromanager. How can I handle these emails that he tends to give after hours?
So I think that's a tough place to be in. And I think the question really comes down to, at some point, that conversation is more along the lines are, what would you like me to do with these? I mean, are you, I was going to respond. See, I always took the approach, the opposite, kind of like, hey, I was going to respond back to these emails, but I'm trying to be respectful of your time. So therefore, I'm not going to respond to these emails until tomorrow morning, just to be out of respect for you, kind of the reverse side of it. Because at some point, in a delicate but positive way, you've got to have that conversation with them about the fact that, if you send them, I'm reading them. Now, so if you're sending them, I'm reading them. If I'm responding at some point, you and I are just having this conversation at, 8 o'clock and 9 o'clock at night. So, you're almost asking that question in a nice, polite way. Hey, what is it that you're expecting me to do with this? And I think that would be, that's sort of I'm trying to think what the kids always say, but it's that kind of passive aggressive way of saying, hey, I'm going to read them if you send them. If you send them, then I'm going to send them back to you. Is this really what you were expecting? Was your expectation to get an answer? Because if it was, then we're just going back and forth. I have too much respect for your family time and your personal time. So therefore, I'm not going to, I'll send you back tomorrow. Is that what you're thinking? At some point, then he's either got to say, well, no, of course not. No, no, no. I just wanted to get him out there. So when you came in the morning, oh, okay. But if he said, I think the other thing is, there's a whole scheduling to emails as well, right? I guess I didn't realize this. I was talking to my daughter, Nicole, about it, but she showed me how you can schedule emails. And so, okay, well, just schedule them out then. If you want me to have them first thing when I come in, I got it. So you know what, to schedule them to all drop at 8 o'clock in the morning, whatever time you start. And I think that could be a way to do it. It's difficult, especially if you like working there. There are a lot of good things about the individuals, a lot of good things about the organization. You like what you're doing, but it's getting to the point where it's becoming difficult. And I think you do that passive aggressive, hey, if you send them, I'm going to read them, but I don't want to send back an answer that late. So why don't we schedule this? Why don't we figure it out? Or maybe you go to him and say, hey, did you realize there's a scheduling for this email? Because I got to tell you, pretty cool. I never knew that existed.
The second question is, I manage 5 people, and I definitely am a micromanager. I try to combat this by doing many team outings throughout the year. It is hard for me to let go of the reins and give people the time that they need to do their own work. How should I handle this?
Well, I would say the first couple of things. Well, I think number one is I guess the good news is that you recognize that you are a micromanager, right? Because kind of like the first step in the process. I think then is you have to start to have what I would suggest to you is look at those things that you're micromanaging. You probably are micromanaging some really small tasks without even, because you micromanage everything and you put everything into urgent, not need to do. So you put everything in need to do, not nice to do. So start to find some of those things that are things that your people are doing that even if they made the worst mistake in the world wouldn't be harmful to the organization or to you or to them. Start to delegate those things. Start to let them do them, right? You've got to have some successes yourself personally on micromanaging. So don't pick the largest project that the organization's asking you to do. You're going to micromanage that to death, right? At the end of the day, though, what are the things that you don't need to be micromanaging when you look at that nice to do, need to do kind of thing, or the priorities, don't put everything in the same bucket. Start to find those things that you can allow them to do that are wins for you and them. They're going to be small. It's okay initially. But if you're micromanaging on everything, even if you gave each person one thing that you're going to quietly walk away from and let them do, then I think then that begins that process. You start to gain, it's kind of like you look around like, hey, we're all okay. Nothing bad happened. Yeah, they made a mistake, but we can fix it. You just need to get some success from a kind of delegation perspective, and then you start to let the reins. So I would say, A, it's good that you recognize it, but B, now you recognize you have to do something about it, because then people get more annoyed when you say, I know I'm a micromanager, but I just have to do this. Then it means that you're not willing to take that next step. You have to be willing to take that next step. I would say find those things, have some successes yourself, and then move past there.
Thank you. I don't see any other questions coming in. Do you have any last thoughts you would like to share?
No, thank you very much. Like I said, if there's anything I can do to help, the book I think can be very helpful. It's written from a kind of a career of a lot of great experiences and working with some wonderful people that I wanted to share, as well as this podcast. has been well received because it's only 3 to 5 minutes. So please check it out. It's on the Leadership Library podcast. It's on the tightentheLugnuts.com site. If there's any topics that you would like me to, kind of take a look at and produce the 3 to 5 minutes on, feel free to contact me at rockyromanello@gmail.com or on the website as well. But thank you, Stacy, for the opportunity, and it's always a pleasure to work with you and interact with you and our St. John alum.
Great. Well, thank you everyone for joining us today, and a special thank you to Rocky for such an informative presentation. For his complete bio, please go to www.stjohns.edu/APD series. Here you'll also find a schedule of upcoming webinars and past recordings. In the meantime, have a great rest of your day. Thanks, Rocky.
Thanks, Stacy.